Janavalabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Shodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Good morning, everybody. Hare Krishna. We are continuing the second chapter of Canto 11, in which Maharaj Nimi is greeting the 9 Yogendras, these great wandering sages who come to bless him with their association. So we will read 23 through 26, and then we'll do the Sanskrit for 26. This is text 23. I'll just read the English. The 9 Yogendras are liberated souls who travel freely to the planets of the demigods, the perfected mystics, the sadhyas, the heavenly musicians, the yakshas, the human beings, and the minor demigods, such as the kinnaras and the serpents. No mundane force can check their free movement, and exactly as they wish, they can travel as well to the worlds of the sages, the angels, the ghostly followers of Lord Shiva, the Vidyadharas, the Brahmanas, and the cows. Text 24. Once in Ajanabha, the former name of the earth, they came upon the sacrificial performance of the great soul Maharaj Nimi, which was being carried out under the direction of elevated sages. Text 25. My dear king, seeing those pure devotees of the Lord who rival the sun in brilliance, everyone present, the performer of the sacrifice, the Brahmins, and even the sacrificial fires, stood in respect. And text 26. Videhastan abhipratya Narayana Parayana Prita Sampujayam Chakre Asanastan Yatharhata Videhastan abhipratya Narayana Parayanan Prita Sampujayam Chakre Asanastan Yatharhata Videhastan abhipratya Narayana Parayanan Prita Sampujayam Chakre Asanastan Yatharhata. Please chant. Videhastan abhipratya Narayana Parayanan Prita Sampujayam Chakre Asanastan Yatharhata. Videhastan abhipratya Narayana Parayanan Prita Sampujayam Chakre Asanastan Yatharhata. Videhastan abhipratya Narayana Parayanan Prita Sampujayam Chakre Asanastan Yatharhata. Videhastan abhipratya Narayana Parayanan Prita Sampujayam Chakre asanasthan yatarhata. Vaishnavis. Dehastan abhikritya Narayana Parayanan Prita Sampujayam Chakre Asanasthan Yatarhata. Okay. Word for word. Videha Nimi Maharaj. Tan, them. Abhipritya, recognizing. Narayana Parayanan, as devotees whose only goal was Narayan. Prita, satisfied. Sampujayam Chakre, he fully worshipped them. Asanasthan, who had been seated. Yatha arhata, as they deserved. Translation and purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. King Videha, Nimi, understood that the 9 sages were exalted devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, overjoyed at their auspicious arrival, he offered them suitable sitting places and worshipped them in a proper way, just as one would worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Please repeat. King Videha, Nimi, understood that the 9 sages were exalted devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, overjoyed at their auspicious arrival, he offered them suitable sitting places and worshipped them in a proper way, just as one would worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'll read the first paragraph, and then if a few devotees can have the mic ready, I can use some help reading. It's a long purport. The word yatarhata is significant here. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti, the word yatarhata means yatochitam, or according to the proper etiquette. It is clearly mentioned here that the Nava Yogendras are Narayana Parayana, exalted devotees of the Supreme Lord Narayan, or Krishna. Therefore, the word yatarhata indicates that the king worshipped the 9 sages according to the standard Vaishnava etiquette. The etiquette for worshipping exalted Vaishnavas is expressed by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur with the words Sakshad Daritvena Samasta Shastrai. An exalted Vaishnava, being totally surrendered to the will of the Supreme Lord, is taken to be a transparent medium for the Lord's will. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is stated that even by a moment's association with the pure devotees of the Lord, one can achieve all perfection in life. Therefore, as indicated by the word Prita, King Nimi was overjoyed by the auspicious arrival of the sages, and therefore he worshipped them just as one would worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Although impersonalist philosophers claim that every living entity is equal to God, they callously step over the heads of their so-called spiritual masters and freely speculate on the nature of the Absolute, giving their own whimsical opinions in defiance of the impersonal whims of their so-called gurus. In other words, although Mayavadi impersonalists claim that everyone is God, they ultimately show an offensive mentality toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in rejecting the reality of his eternal form and pastimes. Thus they unwittingly belittle the eternal position of all living beings by denying their eternal personality and activities in the kingdom of God. The impersonalists, through their mental concoctions, try to minimize the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities who are part of him, reducing them theoretically to a formless, nameless light, which, by their concoction, they claim to be the absolute God. The Vaishnavas, however, welcome the Supreme Personality of Godhead and easily understand that the unlimited Supreme Personality has nothing to do with the conditioned, limited, mundane personalities we find in the material world. The impersonalists arrogantly assume that there could not be any transcendental or unlimited personality beyond our present experience. But the Vaishnavas intelligently understand that there are many wonderful things far beyond our limited experience. Therefore they accept the words of Krishna, who states in Bhagavad Gita 15:19. I'll skip the Sanskrit. Quote, "Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without doubting, is the knower of everything, and he therefore engages himself in full devotional service, O son of Bharat." In this connection, Srila Prabhupada states, "There are many philosophical speculations about the constitutional position of the living entities and the Supreme Absolute Truth. Now in this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead clearly explains that anyone who knows Lord Krishna as the Supreme Person is actually the knower of everything. The imperfect knower goes on simply speculating about the Absolute Truth, but the perfect knower, without wasting his valuable time, engages directly in Krishna consciousness, the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. It is not that one should simply speculate academically. One should submissively hear from Bhagavad Gita that these living entities are always subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who is able to understand this, according to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, knows the purpose of the Vedas. No one else knows the purpose of the Vedas. Therefore, exalted devotees such as the 9 Yogendras always accept the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as expressed here by the word Narayana Parayanan.
King Nimi was a Vaishnava, and therefore he worshipped the great sages with the same respect with which he would worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as shown by the word yatarhataha. Although impersonalists falsely claim that every living entity is equal to God, they cannot properly respect any living being because of their original offense at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality. Their so-called worship, even of their own guru, is ultimately self-serving and opportunistic. When an impersonalist imagines that he has become God, he has no further need for his so-called guru. The Vaishnava, however, because he accepts the supremacy of the eternal personality of Godhead, is ready and willing to offer eternal respect to all living beings, especially to those most fortunate living beings who have achieved shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. A Vaishnava's worship of the Lord's representative is not self-serving or opportunistic, but is an expression of eternal love for the Lord and his representatives, as indicated here by the word pritaha. Therefore it is clear from this verse that not only the 9 exalted sons of Rishabhadev, but also King Nimi himself were all great devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in defiance of the artificial and limited concept of impersonalism.
Thank you. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, in this verse, Maharaj Nimi is aware of the great exalted position of these 9 Yogendras who bless his sacrifice by arriving there, and he is overjoyed to see them, and he offers them appropriate respect and worship just in the same way that one would worship Krishna himself. So there's a few topics that are important to bring out from this verse. And one of them is that devotees are extremely, extremely special and very, very rare. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye, that out of millions and millions of people, only one will actually be sincerely trying to find Krishna. And people who are approaching Krishna are so special and so rare that even if someone approaches Krishna with an ulterior motive, still he's so pleased that at least they're coming to approach him. And Srila Prabhupada describes that anyone who approaches Krishna for any reason is to be considered a Mahatma, a great soul, because it's extremely rare. And what to speak of in this age, in Kali Yuga, when materialism is so rampant, and even to say the word God oftentimes creates tension if you're meeting someone and trying to share the philosophy of Krishna consciousness on the street. Either you'll find some heavy resistance speaking about God, or people have their own concocted ideas of what is God. And generally, as we see from this purport, it's an impersonal idea, understanding that that God is a formless, nameless light, which by their concoction they claim to be the absolute God. And it makes sense that people are not so eager to accept the philosophy that we're sharing from Bhagavad Gita, because what does our philosophy say? Is that we're eternal servants. And you go to try to tell someone on the street that you're actually an eternal servant. How would you like to join us? So it makes sense that someone might be more interested in hearing that you're God and all the power of the universe is within you. Anything you want, you can have. That's much more immediately attractive if you don't have a realization of one's own limited capabilities. If you look at it clearly, it's pretty obvious we're not God. It's pretty insane. There's a funny story. I don't know the exact personalities involved, but one impersonalist was claiming themselves to be God. And then when they went to the bathroom, the devotees locked this person in the bathroom, and the person wanted to get out. And they said, "We'll let you out. You just have to first admit you're not God." Okay, I'm not God. So we are extremely limited and very tiny. But the amazing thing is that although we are simply tiny infinitesimal sparks of Krishna, we are extremely special in Krishna's eyes. And when one has the understanding from Krishna's perspective of how much he loves his devotees, then as Maharaj Nimi, we will respect devotees in the same way that we respect Krishna. We sing this every morning, that because he's a dear servitor of Krishna, Krishna's devotee is to be respected on the same level. This doesn't mean that anyone is God or that the spiritual master is God. This actually created a huge problem in Iskcon. In the New Vrindavan early days, some devotees, actually sannyasis, were going around telling everyone that Srila Prabhupada is God. And unfortunately at the time, not many devotees had much understanding of the philosophy. They hadn't been reading Srila Prabhupada's books, which is a good lesson for us now, that we should be careful to understand what is our philosophy so that we won't get misled. But devotees were claiming Srila Prabhupada to be God. And Srila Prabhupada heard this, and what did he do? You all know? He expelled them from Iskcon. Yeah, he was furious. So he was very displeased by that. He eventually let these devotees come back to the Iskcon Sangha after some time. But the point is that the devotee is not God, but is to be worshipped on the same level as God. And Krishna can empower a devotee to do wonderful things. So like our Srila Prabhupada, although just in the same way that we are a spark of Krishna, because of his pure desire to please Krishna and his complete dependence on Krishna, he was able to do something nobody else has ever done before. It's so extraordinary to spread this movement all over the world, and to get people who have no understanding of Krishna to, like those of us here are doing. There's a small group that we're hoping to grow. There are devotees here who are trying to give up their bad habits of the past and dedicate themselves to Krishna. And because of Srila Prabhupada's brilliance, he has given a program that can purify even the most lost souls in this world and come to the standard of not only just a Brahman, but to a Vaishnava, which is, a Vaishnava is superior even to the standard of a Brahman. So Srila Prabhupada is a wonderful example of the great power one can exhibit on behalf of Krishna, in Krishna's service. Srila Prabhupada is understood to be a Shakti Avesh avatar. He has the Shakti to distribute Krishna consciousness all over the world. So devotees are very, very, very special, and one should worship them. One should not only just make friends with devotees, but actually have great reverence. Because you hear any devotee's story, and you can see that this is no ordinary soul. Has anyone had this experience? You hear someone's story of how they came to Krishna consciousness, and you're blown away. Wow, I had no idea. Here I was thinking you were just this person, bhakta, whatever, with, all of my own judgments of a certain person, but then you hear how this person was able to somehow gain the intelligence to come to Krishna, and you realize, wow, this is an extraordinary soul. So in my experience, this is actually a very, very good way to overcome criticism of devotees, is to hear their story, because we realize that it's no average person, and it's not easy. You can see from anyone's story, it's not a cakewalk. You don't just walk into the Hare Krishna temple and you immediately are ready for it. That's a rare soul. Kind of like Saranga Thakur Prabhu. He told me a little of his story. He was already so steeped in Vaishnav lifestyle. He was a part of the Sri Vaishnava tradition. And so he walked into Govinda's, and after some time he saw, it was Shyamasundar Prabhu, I believe, and he was cleaning up the kitchen on a regular basis. And he eventually learned that that's the temple president. And he was blown away. Why would a temple president be doing the most menial service in the temple? And so his heart was transformed. So it seemed like a relatively easy process for Saranga Thakur Prabhu. But for most of us it takes quite some time. So we should know where are devotees coming from. How did they arrive at this position of regularly chanting, of regularly trying to worship Krishna and purify themselves. And we need to overcome the tendencies of impersonalism, which are so steeped in our global culture right now. What is Srila Prabhupada's mission? Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyatya Deshatarine. He came to the Western countries so he can free people from the contamination of voidism, thinking ultimately everything is nothing, formless. We have no absolute identity, and impersonalism, that there's no individuality in the ultimate case, that we're all ultimately one, and the ultimate reality is not personal, it's impersonal. So these are the conditionings that we need to overcome. Because if we have these understandings still steeped into our consciousness when we're relating with devotees, we won't be able to properly worship them as Maharaj Nimi is worshipping these non-yogendras. And again, we can easily form judgments and this idea of who somebody is based on our own mental concoction. So in the same way that we need to hear about Krishna to develop love for Krishna, we need to hear from his devotees about themselves, about their realizations. And in this way we make friendships and we can actually develop real love for them and overcome this impersonalism that's in our heart. We can have this voidist idea of kind of just ignoring somebody, just forgetting someone exists, or we can have an impersonal understanding where we'll interact with them but in a very shallow or disrespectful way. So we do need to regularly engage in Guyam Akyati Prichati. This is Srila Rupa Goswami's instruction. This is to reveal one's mind in confidence and to inquire confidentially from others. And if we do this, it's a process of making oneself vulnerable to let someone else know this is what's really going on in my head, in my heart. On the surface I might look so pukka, whatever I want people to think, but underneath, with someone I trust, in confidence, that's the important part. In confidence we can share, this is what's really going on. These are the crazy things that are going on in my own head. This is the pride I deal with, this is the greed I deal with. And we can remember that we are definitely not God. we have so many faults, so if we can regularly engage in these open-hearted conversations with, especially with those who we're living with closely, Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. And with senior devotees, those who are further along the path of Krishna consciousness than we are, if we can reveal our heart to these devotees, then we can constantly be remembering, I am definitely not perfect, I'm definitely not Krishna. You hear about Krishna and he's so wonderful, and even on the surface, if he seems to do something improper, he has such a brilliant plan, like one might criticize. Krishna's telling Arjuna to kill people. He's telling him to kill his family. Who is this Krishna? But if we really understand, Krishna has he has a universal plan to deliver all souls, and so this is just one little aspect of his brilliant and compassionate way of bringing us back to Godhead. But for us, our intelligence is not so broad. It's not. We don't have the ability, like Krishna, to be perfect and pure in everything that we do. So this loving exchange with devotees is a very good way to constantly remind ourselves of that fact. And then there's this point at the end of the purport where Srila Prabhupada's disciples are saying that let me go back. Although impersonalists falsely claim that every living entity is equal to God, they cannot properly respect any living being because of their original offense at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality. So that's very interesting, that those who are impersonalistic, they can't even respect any living being. And the exact opposite is Lord Kapila Dev's explanation of a sadhu is Tatikshava Karunika Suhrada Sarvadehinam, is tolerant, compassionate, and a friend to all living entities. Whereas an impersonalist can't even respect anybody. And going on, their so-called worship, even of their own gurus, is ultimately self-serving and opportunistic. When an impersonalist imagines that he has become God, he has no further need for his so-called guru. So their worship is self-serving and opportunistic. So they're wanting to get something out of the exchange. So Maharaj Nimi here, there's some wonderful Vaishnavas who come to his sacrifice, and he gives them a seating place, and he properly respects and worships them. And you might see this happen if you go to a hotel. In a similar way, you show up and they give you a nice place to sit and sleep, and they give you all accommodations. But there's something they want out of you. They might have a smile on their face, this customer service impression that they want to give you, but deep down they want your money. They want something from you. They're not there purely to care for you. And this is what happens with impersonalists in their relationship with their so-called guru, is that they will approach them with a smile on their face and pretend like they have love, but in reality they want something. They actually want to supersede their guru. That, like Srila Prabhupada once was helping a disciple up an embankment, and then when he got up to the top, the disciple helped Srila Prabhupada up the embankment, and when Srila Prabhupada got up, Srila Prabhupada pushed his devotee down. And he explained this is what the impersonalist does, is they will accept a guru, and they will help them to become purified, and then once they so-called become God, they will reject their guru. I don't need you anymore. Now I'm it. I'm there. Whereas devotees are willing to offer eternal respect to all living beings. So it's an eternal process. This is what, at least in the West, when people get married, they vow that they will, how does it go? Till death do us part. I guess that's actually not an eternal understanding, but people do want that to happen. And actually in the Mormon faith, my understanding is that the belief is that the family actually continues eternally, is that once you leave your body, the family structure continues, and it's an eternal thing. So we want this, we want these eternal relationships, but if they're self-serving, if we're trying to get something out of the relationship, then we're kind of just waiting till that point, that I get what I want and I can leave. I'm just going to hang on, and I'm just going to fake it until you give me what I want, and then I'll reject you. So this is the really unfortunate conditioning that many of us likely still have in our consciousness because of this culture we grow in, we are raised in. So we need to be careful and recognize in what ways does this impersonalism and voidism manifest in my speech, in my actions. How can I come more to this standard of Maharaj Nimi and worship the devotees in a very loving and sweet way. These are some of my thoughts on this section. We've got 15 minutes. I'd love to hear from you all. Realizations, comments, questions. Kalpatru Mataji.
Hare Krishna, nice class. Just I was going to share that, it is said that you can't be God, but you can be godly. And so, and there is a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, I don't know the complete, but it says, Yasya deve parabhakti tatha something, which means that, one who is engaged in devotional service, all the good qualities of demigods will manifest in that person. So that is just the statement. But a question I have is that you shared that how, Saranga Thakur Prabhu, just seeing other devotee being so humble, doing menial service, and he became devotee. At the same time, there are some people who are opposite. When they see, we saying that we are fallen and all, they think that's not very attractive. Like I met somebody in Vrindavan, in the Iskcon temple in Vrindavan, and he was visitor there. So he said, I like everything about Iskcon, but I don't like, you guys, how you put yourself down. So that, he, no matter what I said, he said, no, why we should be that we are, all fallen and, nothing. Why that, So, so
that's a nice question, yeah. So this humility of devotees might be attractive to some, but for others it might be repulsive, might actually keep people away. Does anyone have any thoughts? This is a really nice topic. What do we do about this dilemma? Sarvabhauma Prabhu?
It seems like humility is a principle that's appreciated by most people. This would be an unusual situation.
Most people do appreciate it. It's unusual someone doesn't appreciate humility.
Yeah, so I think if we are humble in general, that'll be a good sign for individuals and for Iskcon as a whole. It would be good for Iskcon and individuals if there's humility in general. There may be false humility or, false low self-esteem or something, but, genuine humility is a good quality that seems like it should be encouraged and appreciated.
Humility is a good quality and should be encouraged. Yeah. Yeah, that said, I have noticed in my own experience that, like Mother Kalpatra was saying, sometimes someone will compliment me. Like a person who's new to the Krishna consciousness movement, and I'll say something humble, passing along the compliment to someone else, and yeah, like you said, they'll say no, not even that they want me to see myself as wonderful, but actually they might feel I didn't properly receive their compliment. That's one thing I've run into. And even with devotees, like I've felt that too. If I compliment a friend, and they'll just neglect it. No, that was free. That was a gift. I wanted to give that to you. So I have run into this issue as well, for sure. And so I've actually noticed for some people, what I'll do, like for newer people, I'll just say thank you. they'll say something, a compliment, thank you. Because for them, that's what they appreciate. Wow, this is an upstanding person. That's some of my experience. Anyone else have any thoughts on humility? Or any other related topics in personalism? Doug, Prabhu.
I wanted to mention on the point of humility, it's been brought up before, and also, Bhakti Tirtha Swami mentions it a lot in his writings, that it's not, that selflessness or humility is not thinking less of oneself, but thinking of oneself less, and spending more time thinking about how to do good for others. And yeah, just thinking about that, just like what you were just bringing up about somebody complimenting you and then like trying to like reflect it or something. It's almost like we're still thinking about ourselves, how this person's like giving us a comment, but then you're thinking like, oh no, I don't deserve this, how can I say something against it, other than just kind of like accepting it and turning to Krishna and saying, oh, wow, Krishna is the source of all good qualities. So yeah, Krishna's empowered me to be able to be this way, so Krishna is glorious. Yeah, and then also one thing that I find sweet is for someone actually to have the vision to appreciate a devotee, that makes them glorious. Like Maharaj Nimi, he is a glorious devotee because he can see the great qualities. He can see that these 9 yogendras are exalted, Narayana Parayana. And so because he has that vision, he is glorious and he acts in the appropriate way. So we can reflect it back to the person who's complimenting us, that you're actually the glorious one because you can see that there's something that Krishna has given me. Otherwise, people are critical if they don't have that vision. Anything that came up that anyone had any doubts about or wants to discuss further? A realization, something that stuck out from what we read and shared, what's something that struck you?
Well, I like the point you made, how sometimes we judge other people just looking at them or without knowing much. Similarly, even within the devotees, when we don't really know, and some devotees are very quiet, they seem like they are doing nothing, they are just, coming and praying. But then somehow if you find out, then you see that, they are really exalted devotees. So it's good not to judge, by the cover. They say not to judge the book by the cover.
It's nice too just to ask devotees what service do you like to do, or what service are you engaged in? Because we might think, oh, this devotee, they don't do so much. Or we might judge in that way. Oh yeah, they're not doing so much. Maybe they help out a little bit, but we can actually hear what service are you doing, or what challenges are you going through. We can try to ask these questions and open up the mind and heart and see a deeper level. You can't be a shallow person and be sincerely endeavoring in Krishna consciousness. There's a lot of depth to devotees. So we should try to be like gold miners and get the right questions to open up people's hearts, understand more about them. Abai, Patrick, do you guys have any realizations, any thoughts? Doug, Prabhu.
Another point to maybe counteract the impersonal, idea, the impersonal conception, is that when we're just reading these verses, it talks about how the 9 Yogendras they're freely traveling around, they're liberated souls, and they were able to just go and associate with all the different varieties of entities within the universe. And then also when they arrived at the arena, the sacrificial arena, even the sacrificial fire stood up and was offering respects to them.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's like everything's personal. Which I thought was a nice point.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a verse I remember from the Gita that something like one who can control his mind and senses is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. So actually, when we develop the qualities of a devotee, if someone has some sincerity in their heart, they will appreciate it. Like Sarvabhauma Prabhu was saying, if someone has genuine humility, then that's actually a glorious quality, and someone who has some sincerity can see that's actually wonderful. This is an exalted person, although they don't think of themselves as exalted. That's glorious that they even recognize their insignificance. So that's a really nice point. Even the fire stood up in honor of the devotees. Radha Krishna Prabhu, do you have any thoughts at this point?
Hare Krishna. I had a hard time hearing because I think the volume is low and the AC is buzzing away, and some of us were not speaking directly into the microphone. So I had a hard time. But speaking of humility, I couldn't hear what Sarva Prabhu was saying, but what I wanted to say is real humility is to know that we are no one in front of the Supreme Lord. We got nothing actually. And acknowledging that, and then going about doing devotional service, helping everyone to connect with the Lord. One time in the, I think it was a Gita symposium or something, seminar, I think it's a symposium in India. Srila Prabhupada was invited, and then all this Mayavadis were speaking, and then Srila Prabhupada started chastising them, So then the organizers of the seminar or the symposium told Prabhupada, you can't do that, you can't chastise people. But that's not sadhu, So that's not humble. Sadhu means you have to be humble. And then Prabhupada said, my humility is to give you what Krishna said as it is, not make up your own conclusions. So that's one of the way to understand what humility is. And so, sometimes people say, like Kapatari, I think I heard she say, people think we are too humble and so they don't like it, I think sometimes we can chastise people, and that's also humility. To show them that they are wrong, and so we are taking the position to help them understand that. It's difficult unless you really come to the proper conclusion that you are no one and Krishna is the only one and we are supposed to serve. And until that gels very nicely in one's heart, our practice of humility will be, it's there but not really in the full manner that we all understand it to be. Yeah.
Thank you, that's really nice. There was one instance too where someone was asking Srila Prabhupada what is humility, and he said, to be bold for Krishna. That's humility. Because Krishna is infinite, so he can empower someone. As I was explaining with Srila Prabhupada, he can give someone the Shakti to do wonderful things. And so if we can be receptive to Krishna's will, then he can use us as an instrument. And that is humble. That not that I'm someone wonderful, but that I'm willing to let go of what I want to do. I have some ideas, but I'm going to put those to the side. I'm going to try to understand what is Krishna's will and simply just act as his instrument. And Arjuna did just that, and his humility was being a great warrior and engaging in the battle of Kurukshetra, not just abandoning it entirely. Prabhu, you've another thought?
Yeah, humility is doing what the authorities want you to do, not what you think is right or wrong. It's not your concoction. So, as you mentioned, Arjuna did what Krishna wanted. Srila Prabhupada did what his guru wanted. He didn't just put forth what he wanted. So,
Yeah, that's really nice. But then also, if we do have difficulties or doubts in accepting an instruction from a superior, it's not that humility means I'll just squash my own feelings and just do it. But one can actually humbly inquire from their superior. Like Ratadvaja Maharaj told me this in Dallas, that Arjuna gave a good example of this kind of humble inquiry to one's guru. Because Lord Krishna said that he instructed this science to the sun god millions of years ago. And Arjuna, he didn't say, no way, you're not older than the sun god. He said, how am I to understand that you instructed this science to the sun god, although he's senior by birth to you? So he said, he didn't say, you're wrong, Krishna. He said, what's going wrong in my mind that I can't understand this conundrum? So this is humility as well. This is an important aspect to bring out here, is that we don't just need to squash our own feelings and just do whatever anyone says and just be submissive in that way. We have real feelings, we have real doubts. If we don't express them and work through them, then they'll keep damaging our bhakti creeper. They're demons, actually, these doubts, and Krishna advises that we slay them with the weapon of knowledge. And this knowledge we get from our spiritual master. So we should express sincerely to our superiors, if and when we have doubts, that this is what's in my heart. I respect you and I want to follow your instructions, but this is impeding me, so please help me work through this. This is something that has really transformed my own life. It takes a lot of courage, because we're showing that there's something wrong in ourself. We're just saying, yeah, I'm broken and I can't do what you want, but I want to do it, so please help me to understand. All right. Shri Shri Radha Nilamadava ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande.